This happened back when I was 15. It was the middle of summer, and at the time this took place, both of my parents were out of town on a 4-day-long business trip. I'm an only child, so this meant I had the house to myself. By the second night, I was pretty bored, so I figured I'd invite my friend Justin over to stay the night. I called him up and he agreed. But by this point, it was already pretty late, so he said it might take him a while because he didn't have a ride and would have to walk. Fast forward 30 minutes and he arrived. We went up to my room and started playing Xbox. This probably went on for a couple hours, when Justin perked up and recalled a cave that he had stumbled upon while walking over here. I guess something in the game we were playing had somehow reminded him of it or something. I'm not really sure. And I had no reason not to believe him. We lived in a small town in the mountains, where caves are somewhat common. He went on to suggest that we explore it. I was getting bored of playing Xbox, so 15-year-old me thought it was a good idea and agreed. Now, remember, this all occurred at night. The two of us went around the house looking for flashlights and anything else we thought we might need. We then headed out. I basically just followed Justin, trusting his guidance. Eventually, he took a sharp turn off the road and directly into the dense trees of the forest. Then, after a few minutes, we saw it. It was extremely hidden behind some trees. The mouth of the cave was pretty small, think like a bit smaller than a doorway. We walked in, and we quickly discovered that other people had been here before. There were plastic bottles, chip bags, and other convenience store junk. As we walked further inside, we got hit with this horrible putrid smell. Describing it in words wouldn't do it justice, like it was actually that bad. We put our jackets over our noses and did our best to ignore it. My flashlight then revealed what looked to be the source. Lying against the wall of the cave was a large black garbage bag. Somewhat next to that was a makeshift bed and multiple fast food bags, some of which still had food inside. I started to panic a bit, realizing a homeless guy might be living here. Justin started to look at the fast food bags to see how fresh the food was. But that's when he noticed something. There was this photo album looking thing with a black cover. Justin opened the first page and shined his flashlight on it. Before I even got a chance to look, he dropped it out of disgust. "Dude, there are pictures of dead bodies in there." I almost didn't want to believe what he said, but I didn't want to look for myself. I was looking up at Justin when a blinding white flash lit up the entire cave for not but a split second. Both of our heads shot in the direction of the noise. We didn't dare shine our flashlights toward whatever it was. Instead, we turned around and ran back to the entrance, literally as fast as we could go. When we got back outside, we made a break for the road. We didn't stop until we got back to my house. We locked all the doors and windows before discussing what exactly we had just witnessed. We agreed there had to have been someone in there with us. Realistically, we knew that flash couldn't have been anything other than a camera flash. The next morning, we called the police and reported what we saw. When they investigated the same cave, they found nothing but the plastic bottles, chip bags, and convenience store junk that we had found when we first entered. They didn't find any makeshift bed, black trash bag, photo album, or most importantly, any person. So naturally, nothing came of it. Why whoever was in that cave felt the need to take our picture, I'll never know 100%. But the older I get, the more red flags the whole situation gives off. Like, what was in that black trash bag to give off such a putrid smell? Or why would there be an extremely graphic photo album? All the people I've talked to agree that this was more than just a homeless guy living in a cave. I was 22 when this happened. Me and two of my friends, Miles and Ruben, have always been outdoor people. For as long as we've known each other, we've always liked being outside and doing things that involved a bit of risk. One of those things was caving. One of our favorite spots was a secluded cave system that was essentially a huge underground maze of tight spaces and tunnels. The entrance was in an area of forest that was just off a beaten track, which was a good 10-minute walk from a gravel parking area where we usually parked. This time in particular, we decided to go onto the same cave system and try to explore some of the tunnels that we hadn't really been down before. Now, there weren't any drawn maps of the cave system, so instead we would use a set of rope that we attached to the entrance. We would take it with us as we went down, so that way we could easily find our way back up through the many different routes. We drove out to the gravel parking area. The place was empty, except for one car. It was a dirty white pickup. Though this wasn't unusual, plenty of people used the area for hiking and other outdoor activities. As we got our stuff, I glanced over at it and saw that there was a man sitting in the driver's seat, just watching us. Trying to be friendly, I gave him a thumbs up as we walked past, but he didn't even react to it. It was a bit odd, but I tried to ignore it as we carried on towards the cave system. As we were setting up and getting ready to head down, I glanced over my left shoulder thinking I'd seen something in the tree line. I felt uneasy, but I brushed it off, chalking it up to nerves I would sometimes get before going into a cave. Anyway, the three of us went inside. There were a lot of narrow sections in the cave that took me by surprise, but nonetheless we were having fun. Eventually, we found this small area with a small waterfall. We all agreed to take a break and catch our breath. Afterwards, right when we were just about to continue exploring the area, something happened. I had the rope in my hand, when suddenly I felt a sharp tug before it went completely slack. Confused, we all pulled on the rope, and our hearts sank. The rope was completely loose, meaning it was cut by someone or something. We all agreed the best course of action would be to head back up to the surface, something which, without a rope as our guide, now seemed close to impossible. We were going to have to remember the exact route we took. I've never been in such a frantic state. We took multiple wrong turns, and trying to all turn around in there is not the easiest thing to do. But eventually, after what felt like days, we were all hit with a short wave of relief. We could now see the light from the surface, and a couple minutes later we were all out. But we were now again on edge. We desperately rushed to pack everything up. I was constantly looking around us for any sign of the person that cut our rope. And just as we were finishing up, I saw them. There were around 6 people, including the man from the pickup in the parking area, all standing in the tree line. My eyes were still adjusting to the daylight, but I could tell each of them were holding long knives. Miles and Ruben saw them too. We all ran as fast as we could back to our car. The whole while we didn't dare to look behind us. Back in the parking area, the pickup, now empty, was still the only thing apart from our car. We got in and got out of there. We haven't been back to that spot since. We still don't know who those people were. We never saw them again. When I was maybe 12 or 13, my family and I moved from a busy city to a pretty middle-of-nowhere type of house in the woods. To give you an idea, the school I transferred to, which was the closest one, took about 25 to 30 minutes to drive to. Needless to say, the change was night and day. At that point in my life, I had literally only ever lived in the city, so it was a big difference for me. However, I would get used to the change relatively quickly. Looking back, I think it was mostly just because I was a kid, and it sort of just gave me more free space to roam around. I don't really know how to explain it better than that. Anyway, not long after moving in, I would discover an old strip of abandoned mines in a section of forest that was only a couple miles from my house itself. It had tons of abandoned mining equipment, tracks, caves, trails, and that kind of stuff. And I mean, being a kid, this was essentially like finding a giant playground. I remember the next day at school, I told a few friends about it. Surprisingly, none of them had heard of it before. I really wanted to better explore it after school, and one of my friends, Jackson, agreed to go with me. Fast forward to the end of the school day, and we started walking over there. When we got there, we quickly started checking out all the different equipment. It was honestly really cool to see. A lot of the stuff was actually still intact, but you could tell the stuff wasn't still in use. Things were rusty and just generally not in the best condition. Eventually, Jackson suggested that we explore one of the caves. Initially, I was against it. They were pretty eerie. Looking inside, basically all you could see was a set of tracks that led straight into complete darkness. Plus, all we had for light were the flashlights on our phones, which really didn't light up much of anything. But regardless, I eventually agreed, so long as we didn't go so far deep to where we could no longer see the light from the entrance. Cut to around 2 minutes into our walk into the cave, and we were now pretty far in. The daylight from the entrance was no longer really lighting up anything in front of us. I told Jackson we should probably turn back. He agreed, so we started walking single file back towards the entrance. Jackson was leading, and I was trailing him. Only a moment passed when Jackson said, "Whoa, who was that?" I looked up from the ground as we walked, but I didn't see anything. "Dude, I think I just saw someone. Why would anyone else be out here?" At first, I thought he was trying to scare me, but the tone of his voice was too genuine. He went on to explain how he saw a man walk from the left side of the entrance to the right. We both just stood there, intently staring towards the entrance of the cave. That's when a head peeked around the corner looking inside. Jackson and I both instinctively dived towards the side of the cave, hiding against the wall in the darkness. All we could do was hope that the guy hadn't seen us. He stood there at the entrance for a few seconds. We both had a clear view of his silhouette against the light outside. To our horror, the man started walking down the cave. As he did so, he started laughing in this disturbing manner. I looked at Jackson. The only thing I could make out in the darkness were his eyes. But from that alone, I could tell he was just as scared as I was. Whoever this man was clearly did not have good intentions, or at least that's what I gathered from both his body language and the way that he laughed. The man continued to walk further into the cave. Meanwhile, Jackson and I continued to stay as quiet as we could, lying against the wall. As he got closer, I could better make out what he looked like. He had short black hair, had on a black set of boots, and was wearing a dirty pair of overalls. I noticed he had something in his hand, but I couldn't tell what it was. When he got even closer still, I realized it was a revolver. I could now hear my heart beating in my ears. Even being as young as I was, I vividly remember seeing life memories flashing before my eyes. The guy then got maybe 12 feet from where we were standing and stopped. He looked around for a second. I could see him squinting his eyes so as to see further into the cave. Then, by some miracle, he turned around and started walking back towards the entrance. When he got there, he turned right and was now out of view. It looked like he had kept walking, but Jackson and I both agreed we weren't going to take any chances. I mean, what if he really did see us and was hiding by the exit waiting for us to leave? It was about to be dark, and while being alone in an abandoned mine in the dark was a scary thought, potentially having to confront this man was more so. Naturally, within what was about around the next hour or so, it got completely dark outside, making everything in the cave even darker than it already was. Of course, we didn't have any service on our phones to be able to call for help. In our minds, we would have, in all likelihood, just been fine to walk home right then and there. But again, we did not want to take any chances with that guy still potentially waiting for us at the entrance. It would be long, but Jackson and I both agreed to wait until midnight. We figured by that point there was a small chance we'd run into any trouble, so that's exactly what we did. It was close to 5 hours of just sitting there in complete darkness, with the both of us still utterly terrified. When midnight finally came, we both got up and slowly started walking towards the entrance. We didn't dare to turn on the flashlights on our phones. Slowly, we creeped forward. Jackson was in front of me. We were now only a few steps away from the entrance, when out of nowhere, Jackson started sprinting. I was terrified. I didn't know what he saw, but I started sprinting as well just behind him. We went straight into a set of trees and in the direction of my house. After running for what felt like forever, my house finally started coming into view. Then I would begin to see flashing red and blue lights from multiple police cars. I saw an officer speaking to my parents. Jackson and I both frantically ran up to them with tears in our eyes and did our best to explain everything. Seeing the police cars really put into perspective for me how close we were to becoming the next missing person cases. There's absolutely no way our bodies would have been found in that cave. I'm sure of that. Over the next couple of weeks, police would search the abandoned mines and surrounding area for any sign of the man we described. However, their search would unfortunately yield no results. That man has yet to be found. From that day on, I chose not to go outside much, purely out of fear. If I did go somewhere, I would tell my parents exactly where, with the exact time I'd leave and be back. For those wondering, I later talked to Jackson about why he started running when he got close to the entrance of the cave. Disturbingly, he would tell me how he thought he saw the man crouched down. But again, it was dark. I'm not really sure how it's possible he could have seen that, so take it how you will. What I will add though, and something I never told anyone, including Jackson, was how, while we were running, I thought I heard a third pair of footsteps running behind us. Even to this day, I think back to that exact moment and try to decipher whether those were real footsteps I was hearing, or whether it was just my imagination.